So what happens if you get assigned on the short strike of a put credit spread? So I had a put spread that got assigned this morning. It was a put spread on Dash. As you can see here, it says married put. But what I initially had, I had a put spread on Dash 120, 115. So short strike 120, long strike 115, expiring January 2024, as you can see over here. This morning, the short strike got assigned. So what happened was I ended up with 100 shares of Dash at a 120 strike in my account. So when you sell a put, if it gets assigned, you're going to end up owning shares at that strike, 100 shares. Actually, I think I had 2 contracts, so I ended up with 200 shares. But it was part of a spread. So I had a long put. I had a long strike of 115. So my max loss is capped basically because of that long put strike of 115. So what I ended up having in my account, what was left over in my account, was 200 shares of Dash and a long put, 2 long puts at 115. It's called a married put, or Questrade uses the term married put when you have 100 shares plus a long put. So all I had to do to close the trade was sell what I had. So I basically, as you can see here, I just sold basically by clicking on the position that I had, and I could sell them together in one trade. So it was sell 100 shares and then sell to close the put, and you basically close it for this a net credit of the strike of your put. So I tried to close it for 115. It didn't fill, so I went a little bit lower, 114.96, and that ended up filling. So my max loss is really $5. So 120 minus 115 times the number of contracts. I had 2 contracts minus any credit I received from the trade initially. So there's no reason to panic if you get assigned on the short put, as long as you've got, especially if it's part of a spread, as long as you've got the long put still with you, then there's no added risk. It's just an extra transaction that you have to do to close out the trade, which is basically just sell the shares and then sell the long put at the same time. It also happened to me with triple Qs. I had, as you can see here, it happened to me twice actually, but it happened at the 365 strike and the 340 strike. I ended up with 200 shares of the triple Qs at 345, and I had the long put at 340, so I just ended up selling the shares, whatever they were worth. But because my long put was definitely in the money, so my long put was profitable to make up the difference of how far low the triple Qs was trading at, capping my loss between the short strike and the long strike. So there's really no reason to panic when you get assigned. As you can see, I sent an order for 340. It got filled at 340.06. So I actually got a little bit more. The only problem with Questrade, when you get assigned, there's a $25 fee. So that's a little bit annoying. So these were trades that I was trying to save. Initially I had a put spread that got completely breached. So I decided to roll it all the way out to January 2024. And I added a contract. So I added more risk, but I went super far, giving triple Qs enough time to come back up. But we're in a bear market or even a recession, so it might take years before it comes back up. So this is another lesson here that I learned, that rolling is not always a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea to roll. Sometimes it's just better to take the loss and move on, because when you're rolling, you're adding more risk to the trade, and it's taking more capital, more buying power, and eventually, sometimes it works, but most of the time when it doesn't work, it just increases your loss. So I've given up on rolling, basically, is what I'm trying to say here. If you look at the definition of a put option, you're not going to panic if you get assigned. So what is a put option? When you buy a put option, it gives you the right but not the obligation to sell 100 shares of the underlying at a specific strike. So when I bought the 340 put, which is part of my spread, it gives me the right to sell 100 shares at 340, regardless where the stock is trading at. But when I sold the 345 put, it's the opposite. It gives the buyer of the option the right to sell at 345. So when the buyer of the option ended up selling for 100 shares for 345, I ended up being the buyer. So I'm the buyer of 100 shares at 345. But that's okay. I'm the buyer of 100 shares at 345, even if Qs is at 260. But I also have the long put at 340, which gives me the right to sell 100 shares at 340. So my max loss is going to be capped at between 345 and 340. So always, as long as if it's part of a spread, there's no reason to panic if you get assigned. All right, so that's all I wanted to show in this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.